Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. I have a wonderful episode for you today. I'm actually snowed in right now. We got about 8 inches of snow outside, but March 10th, I would not expect a blizzard. This is an unhappy surprise, but we have a great show for you. Great guest. He's actually calling us from Charleston, South Carolina, which is kind of an emerging startup hub right now with some exciting things happening. They're one of the, probably the fastest growing startups down there. They've raised a little bit over $4 million from a few different investors. We'll talk about which ones in a second. But first, let's welcome Levi to the show. Levi, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here, Jonah.
So before I didn't want to screw up the name of your company. Why don't you say what company you started, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I started Ceterus.
Ceterus. Okay, there you go. And the website is ceterus.com. So it's CETERUS.com. Now tell us what you guys do.
Sure. We are a done-for-you accounting with benchmark reporting for small businesses. So we are a solution that actually does the bookkeeping for small business owners and provides them with really unique, kind of tailored reporting that benchmarks these small businesses against their peers. And that's a combination of our automation technology that kind of automates much of the bookkeeping process. And that's kind of paired with our team of friendly, helpful professionals that actually understand accounting that can be there to communicate with the customers and those kind of things.
Now, what were you doing before you started this company, and what motivated you to start it?
So I always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur, even from back in like the high school days. Went to college, took an accounting class, actually really liked accounting. I really didn't know that was going to happen. Went and ended up going to work at a CPA firm for a couple of years, got my CPA. But that entrepreneurial itch just wasn't going away. So about 2 years after that, I got out of that, started a few small businesses that none of them really had the potential high impact that I really wanted, that the kind of company I wanted to build. But throughout that process of working in the public accounting world with some large corporations and big institutions, nonprofits and school systems and all these kind of things, and then going to run small businesses, I kind of realized I wanted to work with small business owners. I really enjoyed them. I liked the energy they brought. I just liked who those people were more so than kind of the bigger enterprises that I had worked with. Those were all good people as well. It just wasn't kind of for me. I also realized while I was running these other kind of small local businesses that a huge portion of my time was going towards managing the back office, things that weren't going to really help me grow, help me sell, help me hire, help me build a better business. They were just necessary things that had to happen. And kind of the last realization was all those necessary things I actually really enjoyed. And there was a lot of good web solutions out there, cloud-based tools that you could use to make them efficient. So kind of the light bulb came on, and I said, I think the business I really want to build is to empower other small business entrepreneurs by doing these back office tasks for them as a solution. So I started Ceterus in 2008 with that in mind. As just it was an outsourced service business, essentially, where we did this, provided that service to other small businesses using cloud technologies, got it going that way.
Now, as a business owner myself, and then helping other people start businesses, I mean, I know the pitfalls that anyone can run into when it comes to accounting and finance and just knowing your numbers and tracking cash and everything else. But you told me a pretty crazy number in our pre-call about how many businesses fail because of accounting related issues. What was that number? And kind of tell me, what are some of the big mistakes that you see business owners making?
Sure. So yeah, the numbers, and again, it's kind of hard to get this number, but there's some sources that we've kind of pulled together that support this number. And a lot of businesses fail. We hear that all the time, that a lot of small businesses fail. But of those small businesses that fail, roughly 46%, almost half of them, it's attributed to either improper bookkeeping, poor bookkeeping, or fraud, or just not understanding the financial reports and what the actual financial health of the business is. And those two causes and a variety of things that go around them are what cause roughly half of the businesses that go out of business, are not because they don't have a great service or a great product or a great team. It's because they didn't understand their numbers or could keep track of them properly, which to me is just a really, really sad thing. Again, these are really good people that took a lot of risk to go try to, pursue their dreams, and to have them crash down by something seemingly as small as bookkeeping and financial reporting is just something that doesn't seem quite right.
Now, I've seen business owners that try to do it themselves, nights and weekends kind of, or at the end of a late day when they're exhausted and they barely know what they're doing to begin with, or they hire a part-time bookkeeper, or they outsource it to an employee. What is the most, before you guys take over, what's the most common scenario?
Yeah, that's great. We actually kind of have three buyer personas, if you will, of the small businesses we're working with or looking to work with. And they either are doing it themselves, which, in my opinion, and we've run some numbers on it, the value of a small business owner's time is really astronomical. The opportunity cost of them doing their bookkeeping is pretty high. So about 10 or 20% of our customer base has come from doing it themselves. The vast majority outsource to a part-time person that comes and helps them with their books. And that can be great if you have a good person, and it can be really bad if you don't. And unfortunately, the small business owner is rarely equipped to tell the difference. Right. They're not bookkeeping and accounting experts most of the time. So they trust this person knows how to use QuickBooks or Xero or whatever. I'm going to let them come in and do it. And again, when it works, it's great. Those people are great. But a lot of times that person doesn't know what they're doing or doesn't understand. Maybe they're good at bookkeeping, but they don't understand your industry very well. So we just see their business owners run into a handful of problems in that model. And the third persona is when you kind of have an internal team. Again, the small businesses we pursue, that's relatively rare. We're usually dealing with smaller businesses that typically don't have the luxury of hiring their own, accounting professional to run their accounting.
Now, I'm assuming you guys prefer to work with the business from the very beginning, right? Or is that just too small? And then with that said, how complicated is it to take over an existing business's books?
Sure. We love to work with business owners from the beginning. That's great. With that said, that's probably, 5% of our customers. The vast majority have already been in business for a few months up to maybe a few decades. We get them truly in all stages of their business development. We call the process onboarding, and it's a challenge. We're taking them from whatever system they're on and moving them onto a uniform standard system that we use that's specific to their business, to their industry, and even more specific than that at times. A lot of times a very specific kind of niche vertical that they're in that we've developed things for. So that's a little bit of a process. We have a really good team of people doing it. We kind of hold their hand throughout. That is the one part of working with us where the owner, we need a little bit of engagement. They need to invest a little time. Once we get through that, the owner really spends very little time at all managing their bookkeeping and accounting. They just get a turnkey solution where they can see their financial reports and understand how their business is doing without spending time to get those.
And explain to the audience, if some of our audience members are getting ready to start a business and they want to work with your company from the very beginning, how does everything get tied in, from the receipts to the company credit cards to the bank accounts? How do you guys get all the information you need?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our platform, what we've developed, it integrates with, there's kind of three sources of information that each small business has. And this covers the vast majority of small businesses in this country. They have their financial institutions, which are their banks, their credit cards, where they're typically spending money and making deposits. So we've developed API integrations into all the financial institutions. We cover about 99% of them in the country. So all of that information, everything that's flowing through your bank or credit card account is automatically pulling into our system and being coded and handled appropriately. The second source of information is the point of sale system, or the system that the small business is processing their sales on. So in a retailer or an e-commerce store, it's typically a point of sale. For other businesses, that might be a front-end billing system or something of that nature. So we integrate with that as well, so we can pull the sales information into the accounting system. And lastly, it's their payroll processing system. So we connect to that, and we also pull in the information on their payroll costs, their time worked, and those kind of things. So with those three sources of information, once we get access, we typically get a view-only access to each of those. We connect up, we pull that into our platform, and kind of our automation bots are pulling that stuff all the time. With our human accountants reviewing it, looking it over, and helping customers understand those numbers.
Now, what's your pricing model? How much does it cost to get started with your company? And then what's the ongoing monthly fee?
Sure. So we have a couple different plans. We have kind of the basic, standard, and plus model, and those range industry by industry anywhere from $150 a month up to $400 or $500 a month, kind of depending on your industry as well as what mix of services you want to go with.
And are you guys working with industries across the board? Or are you focused on just a few?
Yeah, we have We're in a couple different industries currently, and we're always looking at new opportunities. We kind of actually have a team that specializes in just about any industry, and we do a little bit of work there. And then as one kind of surfaces that we really want to focus on, we go and push it a lot further. So I would say anybody that's interested in working with us, by all means, reach out. But in general, we're really strong in health, wellness, and beauty businesses. So gyms and yoga studios and massage, franchise locations and, things of that nature. We've developed a lot of expertise in over the last few years. We're also quick service restaurants. We've got a pretty strong industry practice there as well.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of Jewel and host of the Startup Sense podcast. At Jewel, we help entrepreneurs and startup founders build, launch, and grow their companies by providing superior technology, marketing, and consulting services. We help clients of all sizes, budgets, and industries. We put our clients in the best position to raise capital, grow revenues, hire employees, and maximize their profits. For more information or to set up a free consultation with our team, please visit our website at jewel.net. That's JOOL.net. Now, what's been the marketing strategy for you guys? How do you find these clients? I'm sure client referrals and word of mouth is fantastic, but are you guys doing any other sorts of marketing or paid marketing, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, we do. We have a bit of an event strategy that's worked pretty well for us. We have a little bit of an outbound strategy mixed with some content marketing. So we're kind of hitting it from a variety of angles. Again, a lot of times really focused on kind of the specific, relatively small type markets that we're going after, and that's kind of allowed us to have a pretty efficient go-to-market metrics that way.
And you guys have a dedicated sales team?
We do.
How big is the total team?
We have 9 people in sales.
Wow.
Our total team's around 80.
Jesus, really? I didn't realize you guys were that big.
Yeah, we've been growing pretty steadily.
Now, is everyone based in Charleston?
About 65 of us are in Charleston. We actually have just about 9 or 10 up in Michigan, where we actually started the business, and we relocated to Charleston 3 years ago. And then a handful of people that work remote around the country. And
now, what brought you to Charleston?
So as we were growing the business, we were in a small town in Michigan, which was a great place to get the business started and get things off the ground. But as we started needing to hire at a higher velocity, it was hard to find that talent locally. Additionally, I was personally kind of getting sick of the cold. So we needed a place where I could stay warm, and also it was a really good city that we could attract tech talent, sales talent, which is kind of a lot of places, but also good accounting talent, which for us is that third component that, a lot of tech companies don't have, but we need a lot of really good accountants that can help work with our customers. And so we looked at a handful of cities that were all a little bit further south, Austin, Nashville, Tampa, Charlotte, Charleston, and ultimately kind of chose Charleston, which is kind of, it's been a really good decision for us. We've had a lot of traction attracting talent down here. The startup scene, as you referenced at the intro, is really kind of kicking into gear, which is honestly really exciting and fun to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like you kind of did the same thing I did a few years ago when I was looking at moving south out of Boston. Wanted to be near the East Coast preferably, but wanted a little bit of an entrepreneurial ecosystem to kind of plug into. And I ended up in Wilmington, North Carolina for a couple of years. And now I'm back in Boston. Sure. I think the next stop for me is most likely going to be Charleston. And that's obviously one of the reasons we're chatting today is you came highly recommended to me by a couple other entrepreneurs in the Charleston area. So glad we got a chance to chat here.
Excellent.
What's been the biggest challenge for you with, starting when did you start this company again? How many years ago was it?
I actually started it in 2008, and we bootstrapped as a service business for the next 6 years. And then we just raised a VC round last May, so less than a year ago. Okay,
so you've been at this for 8 or 9 years then, I guess.
Yeah, I've been going at it for a while.
Now, since you raised the VC money, and I mean, obviously, I guess that's when you guys became a legit kind of software business, maybe. But what's been the biggest challenges for that? And maybe you can start with the fundraising challenges, because I know you have a unique story there.
Sure. Yeah. So coming from the service model to the SaaS model, so we did that as a bootstrap company. Over about a year, we transitioned from a purely service business using other people's software to a software as a service business with our own platform. And as we did that, we realized the market really wanted it. So we were getting a lot of traction in terms of growth and interest from businesses and people signing up and buying. And we are a monthly recurring revenue model. So we get a month paid at a time, and that's, so we're not getting a lot of money up front. So it was, the faster we grew, the faster we were burning through cash with that model, which again, we liked. If things were succeeding, we were just running through cash a little bit. So it became really clear that we had the kind of business that was a, venture-backed type of business, was capable of kind of getting that institutional financing. But again, I started the business in the Midwest, and I was a guy that was building it, off of sales and revenues and profits, and not, wasn't really plugged into the venture capital ecosystem. So we went out and kind of hit up the major tech hubs, second, third party connections would get me intros to some people. And I got some interest and some people saying, I don't really like Charleston, the firms off the West Coast and whatnot for this stage, that you're a little bit scared of that. And the transition from a service to a software business scared away some people. So we were having a little bit of trouble, getting traction, although we were starting to kind of crack into things. But I actually had a business trip scheduled to Atlanta, and I thought, well, maybe Atlanta has some VCs. I honestly didn't know at the time. And I looked them up, and I found a handful, and I hit them up actually on their Contact Us pages, just submitting the little web form on the Contact Us page. I wrote a little blurb on kind of where we were, what traction we were seeing, and actually got a lot of positive response from that. And kind of, I don't know if it always is the way it goes, but once I started getting some traction and some meetings, it kind of snowballed. I ended up, I think, talking to maybe 40 to 60 different investors over a couple of months, doing a lot of pitches, honing in my deck a handful of times, and ultimately culminating in what I feel was a very successful Series A raise, like I said, last May, with a really good group of investors that we've been, very happy with. And since then, it's, so fundraising was a challenge for sure. It took a little while. We were a little bit of a strange candidate. We really had a good business. We weren't your typical tech business. So, that from that standpoint, we had de-risked the business in a lot of ways in terms of proving product market fit and things like that. At the same time, we didn't have much of a development team. We didn't have much of a sales team. We had a lot of accountants on staff. So the real challenge, I guess, since the raise has been building out that team in a really fast yet high quality manner. And we succeeded at it, but it took a lot of hard work to kind of build up our tech team to what is now, 8 people, our sales team, which is what is now 9 people. And again, a lot of high quality technology company veterans, but it was, a lot of work to bring them in and get them rolling.
How nervous were you going from a service business to a software business?
It was a big decision. I liked having control. I liked, not really having a board to answer to, being able to make decisions, and have success or failure kind of ride purely on that, But with that said, as the opportunity presented itself, and I could see how much faster we could go to the market. And again, back to that whole point of all these small businesses that are struggling, and bookkeeping and accounting is something that's getting in their way, and it's something that's actually causing them to fail a lot of times. It just made sense to kind of give up that control, bring in investors who not only could provide us capital to grow, but also expertise in terms of scaling very fast. And so it was kind of a big, hard decision, but I've always been very focused on that end goal, that mission. And it became so clear that this would expedite getting to that mission so fast that it really was kind of almost not a decision. It was kind of a very clear, this is the way things needed to move.
What is that end goal for you?
To me, the end goal is, I always look at the ADP example, the big payroll processor. Back 40, 50 years ago, all small businesses did their own payroll. ADP figured out how to automate that. Now almost no one does their own payroll, and it saves a ton of hassle and headache for millions of businesses. Bookkeeping is something that is highly fragmented. Almost everyone's trying to do it themselves, or again, have somebody they don't even understand what they're doing do it for them. It's ridiculously fragmented and inconsistent. That to me is going to change. In the next decade, there will be an ADP type player in this space, and I am just fully committed to that being us. There'll probably be a handful of really strong companies in that space, in my opinion.
how have things changed since you guys raised that $4.2 million A round, either with regards to the team or the marketing strategy? I mean, I'm sure it fueled your growth. I mean, you guys are able to do things now that you probably weren't able to do before you raised, but I'll let you kind of tell us how things have changed.
Sure. So the biggest thing to me is that the dream of how you could automate accounting and bookkeeping, as boring as that sounds, it's something that got me super excited. So having fully automated bookkeeping where there's not a number somewhere that somebody has to go enter somewhere else, that always just bothers me, that something gets entered 2 or 3 times when it shouldn't have to. It should all just flow. So being able to raise the money, let us hire the development team, our product team, that is quickly making huge strides on automating that process, where the accuracy goes way up, the efficiency goes up, the timeliness of people getting their information goes way up. So kind of seeing that thing that conceptually I could draw out and explain, and I did to the investors and to raise the money, was this is what can be built and how amazing it'll be. Actually seeing that happen has been really amazing, and there's just no way we would have got there that fast without raising the money. Additionally, we've grown really fast. We have a really strong leadership team in place now. I had a couple guys that I was able to hire as we were bootstrapping along the way that just made unbelievable impacts when I brought them into the business. But that was it took every few years that I could bring somebody like that in. We've been able to add several key leaders since May, and each time we bring in a really strong leader of a department, it just leverages us up to just continue to grow and have a better business.
So one of the things I'm working on right now is I'm launching kind of an accelerator group for entrepreneurs, people that are doing under $1 million a year in revenue and looking to grow that substantially. And one of our big, one of the big points that we're going to hit home on during this, I don't know, a curriculum or whatever you want to call it, is outsource as much as you can. And I think this is what you're talking about with business owners spending time doing things that they should not be doing. Do you have a feel for how many hours a month, if a business owner is doing the bookkeeping themselves, any idea how many hours a month they're wasting on doing it and probably doing it wrong?
Yeah, that's actually absolutely right. They're not only spending the time, they're usually spending the time and not doing it right. But it is anywhere from 5 to 50 hours a month, kind of depending on that person.
Who's spending who's spending the 50?
Some people spend a handful of hours every week putting stuff through. And that's usually maybe the person that, cares a little too much, but sometimes you're spending a handful of hours every single week. It depends on what your business is like and what your bookkeeping needs are like. But it's, we kind of see it all across the board there. The typical, our average owner in the spaces we play in is somewhere between 5 and 10.
A week or a month? A month?
Yeah, a couple hours a week typically.
Okay, yeah. So even call it 10 hours, call it 10 or 12 hours a month. And you guys are somewhere, $150 to $500 a month, in terms of fees. So if they value their time at more than, $15 or $20 an hour, then it's worth having you guys do it, especially to get it done right.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond the getting it done is that, to me, the actual true value comes in them being able to assess how they're doing and how they compare to their peers and where they can actually optimize their profitability. We have examples where people drive up their profitability significantly just by understanding how they're running their business and saying, wow, maybe I'm spending, way too much on my front desk labor. Maybe I have 2 people there when I should only have 1 there. And you can learn those things by seeing how you compare to other well-run businesses in your similar industry. So beyond just the direct cost savings or time that you get back, is actually the ability, which a lot of times dwarfs whatever we charge in terms of improving your profitability.
It's funny, I was just about to ask you if you have a kind of a favorite client story that you could share with us, where after they started working with your company, you really helped them, identify a problem that they had or, help them increase their profit margins. And I think you just kind of, mentioned one. Any other ones you want to share with us?
Yeah, there's a whole handful. Again, we work in a lot of times in franchise concepts where we'll get owners that, have several locations. And when we can compare them to, hundreds of their peers, they really figure out how to optimize. We've had several examples where people will add 4, 5, 8% to their profit margin. So that's of the total sales they're doing. They're increasing the amount of dollars they take home. So if you're doing $1 million at a location in sales and you improve that by 4%, there's an extra $40,000. Just by looking at things and honing them in. And we see those kind of examples literally all the time.
Do most franchise owners run each of their individual stores as a separate P&L?
They should. In our opinion, there's no way to manage it if you don't do that. So most of the time, that's what we see. If not, we highly encourage you to do that, or it's really hard to tell how each location's performing if you're not tracking them like that.
Okay, gotcha. What's one piece of advice that you would share with someone that was looking to start a software company in the next year or so?
I would say once you're sure that what you're planning on doing is what's needed, that get leverage in terms of capital and people as fast as you possibly can. Get the best team around you can, and get the money you need to make it happen. But I would say be sure of what you're trying to build, or you can burn a lot of money on that until you really know for sure what it is. Hopefully it doesn't take you 8 years like it did for me to figure out what I wanted to build and then go and double down and invest in it. But I would say once you know that, really go hard and get the resources you need to make it happen.
What is your number one hiring tip, or what is your overall hiring strategy? I mean, you're 80 people now, 65 in Charleston. Do you still do the hiring yourself, or do you have a full-time HR person?
I do have a full-time HR person that, kind of does HR and accounting type things. So that's for the benefits and the new employee setups and things like that. Recruiting's kind of been something we split between our teams.
Okay.
I try to interview almost everybody we hire as the final interview, just more for a culture fit perspective nowadays, where, a year or two ago, I was an integral part of each hire. Now it's kind of the department leads, do most of the hiring for their teams. But I do try to sit down and interview everyone, especially if they're local, just to be sure, they can ask us questions. We really care about our culture. So I want them to come in kind of understanding what that is, and also to get a feel for them in terms of how they'll fit with that overall. For any, higher level hires, I'm integral in the hiring process, still any kind of direct reports, things like that.
Are you guys doing any hiring outside of Charleston and then recruiting those, getting those people to move to Charleston, or are you able to find enough talent inside the area?
It's one thing Charleston has going that's for it, and it's really working for us, is that people want to be here.
Okay.
It keeps getting rated really high as the best travel destination and a great place to live and all of that. So about half of our new hires in the last year have been people that were relocating here anyway, and they were looking for a job to come to, and be coming down as a accounting or finance professional, you can fit for us, or down as a tech professional, you fit in with us. So about half of our new hires have actually relocated here when they came to work for us, but they were oftentimes looking to be here anyway.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and I mentioned I might be moving to Charleston, and she said, "Why is that?" And I sent her a few pictures of the beach and, downtown, and she's like, oh, "Okay, now I know why." I mean, it's just a really nice area.
It is. There's the combo of the history and the old things, and amazing food scene downtown, real accessible. And then you got the beaches and pretty much good weather outside of a couple of months in the summer that get unbearably hot. It's really nice, pleasant weather all the time. So it's got a lot going for it. I will totally agree.
Now that you guys have raised an A round, I'm sure you'll probably raise a B round, later this year or next year?
Yeah, probably later this year or early next is kind of what we're looking at right now.
Do you think you'll do any acquisitions?
It's hard to say. There's nothing in the short term in terms of that, but I'm always looking for things that fit nicely with us, or horizontal or vertical things that could work like that, but not really a key part of our strategy as we stand today.
And what are some of the metrics and KPIs that you look at to determine the health and stability of your own company?
Sure. So customer acquisition cost is always a big one. Something that's huge for us is churn. Lifetime value, which, churn figures into heavily. We're a month-to-month model. We don't lock people in for the long term. So our customers being happy and staying with us is a huge deal to us, and we've been very successful on that front. And then gross margin, being that we've converted from a service to a software business, we are continually focused on optimizing that gross margin.
What is the lifetime value of a customer? Are you able to share that, or at least how many months they're staying with you?
Yeah, they're staying with us. Our churn is very, very, very low. They stay, the well over 5 years on average.
And through paid channels, what are you willing to pay to acquire a customer?
We kind of want to keep our life or our payback period around 12 months or less.
Okay.
So depending on the contract value and whatnot, that's when we work at. Lifetime value to CAC, we want to be 4, 5, 6 even if we can. So we look at metrics that way as opposed to just a hard amount of how much we pay to acquire them.
Right. But you're willing to pay a couple $100 for a customer, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I think some people, as they start a software business, I think they trick themselves into thinking that they're going to be able to acquire their average customer for, $15, $20, $30, and it's usually not realistic. Especially not in a business like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're certainly, we're willing to invest a lot to get that customer again, because they stay with us for a really long time, and we do well with them once we get them. So that's a great point.
And anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up here? Favorite story, your biggest mistake, proudest moment, any of that stuff?
I guess nothing pops to my mind off the bat, but I could come up with an example for all of those, or several probably if I thought about it. But in general, nothing really pops to mind right this second.
If you could be mentored by anyone, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd say Jeff Bezos.
Okay. What do you like about him? There's a lot to like, so it's kind of a hard question.
Yeah, there's a lot to like, and I think to me the fact that Amazon was a used bookstore online.
Right.
And he made it a public company that was highly valuable as that. But he had this grand master vision that was so much bigger. And if that's what he had went and sold initially, nobody would have ever funded him, and they would have laughed him out of the room. But he came in with something, he perfected it, and he just continued to build on. And now all the things Amazon's in and doing so well at, I find that absolutely fascinating. So he'd be I would think, a pretty solid mentor.
It feels like nowadays, though, accounting and bookkeeping might be the only business that Amazon is not getting into. It just seems like they are just all over the place. In a good way, but
no, I completely agree with you. They're doing everything. So far, they haven't spun up a bookkeeping department, so we're doing okay on that front so far. I don't have them to compete with.
Great interview, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today and kind of share what you're doing and what's happening in Charleston. And how can we connect with you online? Do you use social media or email?
Yeah, you can follow me at Levi More on Twitter, LeviMore. Email is levim@ceterus.com. Always welcome to reach out to me that way as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Next time I get down to Charleston, we'll have to grab coffee. And, if you guys are up to anything new and exciting over the next year, come back and tell us about it.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
You got it, man. Have a good day.
All right. You too.
Take care.